Today we're talking about the Academy Awards. Yay!
Yay!
So I think we'll start off the discussion with the Academy Awards with the movie that I guess is the elephant in the room, which is La La Land.
Here's to the mess we make.
I don't know. I hate musicals, but this charmed me. I like how they took huge risks, and they're like, we're going so old school. They're going to be like floating at the observatory and everything.
Yeah.
They didn't care. It was so carefree and fun. And also that ending, I don't know. Like
That was a great ending.
Well, it was my number one movie of the year on a MovieGuy.com. So I was, I obviously loved it. I'm a huge fan of musicals in terms of when they get it right and when they do it well.
Even then, I don't like them.
Yeah, see, I'm a big fan of them in terms the classics of An American in Paris or Singing in the Rain, things like that. Yeah. And I felt La La Land did a great job. It does a phenomenal job of taking us away for the hour and 50 minutes or whatever it is, or 2 hours, and you get really phenomenal performances out of everybody involved, and it's doing something that we really don't see enough of these days, especially when it comes to musicals, because it's very unique in its own way.
What do you mean by that? Because I've had enough of I'm an actor in New York City. I'm an actor in LA trying to make it.
I struggle, but then I make it.
Yeah.
I'm one of the few. I want to see a movie where an actor doesn't make it.
Yeah,
Well, there was one. It was called Entertainment, but that's not for. That's not a movie for everyone.
You're right.
The thing that I think audiences don't like about musicals is that it's so fourth wall breaking.
Yeah.
It's so conscientious. If you're talking about breaking a fourth wall, it works with something like Ferris Bueller where the audience can buy it.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of used to a comedic aspect.
Yeah, or even like Deadpool, the way Deadpool did it.
Yeah, because that's in essence his character.
Right.
Or if we're even talking about a movie with narration like Goodfellas.
Yeah.
Still, I never saw Jimmy so happy. He was like a kid.
We're following that journey, sort of like a novel, but it feels like it's still grounded within its own universe. And when you see a musical, all of a sudden everybody knows the same choreography, did the same dance.
Right.
And it comes off like it's winking at the camera too much. It's too conscientious of what it's doing.
Yeah.
I can see what you want, but you seem pretty young to be searching for that kind of fun.
And the thing I loved about La La Land is, in a way, it makes you question when they're singing if it's fantasy or reality.
Yeah.
In a certain way. Take, for example, the opening scene when they're in the traffic jam. Everyone gets out of the car, they do this amazing dance, and they go right back in their car, and then they're back to their normal lives. And you kind of think, well, did that really just happen or not?
Yeah.
And especially with the ending of the movie, which I won't give away, it does play with the notion of fantasy versus reality. So the musical numbers in it felt natural. It felt like it was progressing the story rather than what most musicals, like let's say Les Miserables does, where they sing constantly and never shut up.
Yeah.
It warns you're a dangerous man. I stole a loaf of bread.
I want to give away the ending, but, it does play with the fact that,
Yeah, well, I was going to say, it kind of does have a double ending. I mean, it's not exactly, you talked about that reality versus fantasy, and I think for the audience members, you can sort of take from it, whatever type of ending you really want to take. And I also think, too, its ending is pretty unconventional, right? I mean, people would be complaining about it 10 times more if it was the conventional.
Very Wayne's World ending. Where it's like, do you want this type of ending? Do you want this type of ending?
I want to get a little bit into the criticism that La La Land has been receiving.
La La Land is a perfect film!
Which is, a lot of people give it flack for being a light-hearted, fun film, and we're living in precarious political times where I think people want to see movies that are addressing sort of the issues of racism and bigotry.
And have better representation in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The white guy wants to preserve the black roots of jazz, while the black guy is the sellout, writes Abdul-Jabbar.
And people are like, well, we don't need to see another movie from Hollywood that has Hollywood patting itself on the back.
Right.
And I understand that, but at the same time, in terms of the pure filmmaking of the movie and the pure quality of the film itself,
Yeah.
La La Land was the best that I saw.
Yeah.
And it's not just Hollywood patting. Like, people gave the artist a lot of crap.
Right.
And The Artist was actually a really good film.
Yeah.
You know, like, you don't have to love movies to love The Artist.
Right.
You just have to like good stories.
14 Oscar nominations. I really think for even the common audience, it's impossible for La La Land to live up to everybody's expectation.
At first, when I saw 14 Oscars, I'm like, La La Land was not 14 Oscars, and I started to be like, oh, okay, like,
Yeah.
what, like, this isn't the best movie in the world, like, calm down. But then when they were going through the categories, like cinematography, I'm like, oh yeah, that was like fucking
The
awesome.
filmmaking
Right.
is
And
fantastic.
then every
yeah.
category they were going into, I was like, oh yeah, like La La Land does deserve all these things.
Yeah.
Because it was good in all of these different
Right.
departments.
Right. It's good in those categories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, it's about the filmmaking, not the film itself.
Right. Expectations really can kill movies.
Yeah.
in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. It's really not giving, like you said, some art a fair shake. People who are cinema buffs, film critics that were seeing La La Land at, the Toronto Film Festival and Telluride, they were leaving their theater saying, this is the greatest movie of the year. This is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And by the time it gets to audiences in December, right, which is almost like 4 months after.
Yeah, they say, what's
They're
what's
like,
the big deal?
Yeah, what are you guys talking about? You don't know, this is ridiculous. It's not that good. And
Hype can kill movies.
Hype can kill movies, and yet La La Land still has like lasted that test of time. I feel. I still feel like the music is so catchy. It sticks with you everywhere you go.
The one song they only use on it. But
Right,
no, I keep
City
going,
of Stars.
City
Yes.
of Stars.
Yeah, I mean, it
I
just-
don't know the other words to this song.
Yeah.
City of stars, are you shining just for me?
And then transitioning to probably the movie like most people would want to see, like maybe film buffs, would be Moonlight, which
Right.
I liked Moonlight a lot. It was great. And
Yeah.
I think we were talking about this before we were rolling. Alex said that he went in thinking it was going to be like Boys in the Hood.
I
and-
thought I was going to go in and I was about to cry a lot because
Yeah.
the trailers were all just showing medium close-up shots and stuff of a mom yelling at her kid and then him growing up and getting yelled at by his like progressively dying like crackhead mom, and I'm like, this is about to be the saddest thing I've ever seen in my
Yeah,
life.
right.
Like, I'm about to cry alone in this theater.
Try to forget all those times. At some point, you gotta decide for yourself who you gonna be. Can't let nobody make that decision for you.
And then it ended up not being about so much about like struggle in like the ghetto and everything, and it was more of like a fight against like toxic masculinity and like
Right.
not accepting homosexuality in a culture, similar to how Brokeback Mountain did it for like country people. This did it for like people in the hood. I also like how Moonlight is coming off like it's a Boys in the Hood movie. So it got a bunch of people to go see a Brokeback Mountain
Right.
that are like, yeah, it's time to go see like Menace to Society or
Right.
something.
Right.
Nope.
You the only man that's ever touched me.
It's not done in the typical way where they're blasting hip hop music at you. I sound like an old curmudgeon man when I say that, but
Right.
Shut your fucking face.
they're not blasting hip hop music at you, and it's not about someone who tries to make it in the music industry and everything turns out okay.
Right.
Or it's not really about gangbangers, and the movie's characters are really fleshed out where they're not labels. Nobody feels just like one thing. I thought Mahershala Ali.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know his name isn't super American or white, so I get it. But you connect with him so much because he's a drug dealer, but he's a mentor and he's a father and he's
Right.
someone to look up to and he's
Right.
someone like you hang on his every word. I hope he wins Best Supporting Actor.
Yeah, it's looking that way too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let your head rest in my hand. Relax. I got you, I promise. I'm not gonna let you go. Hey, man, I got you.
And the movie was sort of done like a Terrence Malick film where with maybe a little more structure, where it was very much like you were going through the memories or the dreams of someone, and it had this sort of otherworldly sort of feel to it. My one gripe with the film was actually its third act, because I liked how the first two acts came off like this sort of dream of someone's memories.
Right.
We're getting the Malik territory and all that. And then the third act was just dialogue. And you're like, now they're just talking. Did they just run out of time and run out of budget, and they're just going to quickly shoot in this diner, in this bedroom, and then in the motel, and then it ends? Like, okay. Like, it just felt a little lazy towards the end, where I liked where, as you said, it was focusing so much on Chiron's face throughout the film.
Yeah.
And just the reactions alone is what makes the movie work so well. And then when they abandoned that, and then all of a sudden it's just so reliant on dialogue, it felt like they were either short on time or short on money, and they rushed it through.
Yeah.
Or maybe they didn't know what to do with the screenplay, so they said what they were feeling rather than us just seeing what they were feeling.
Yeah, it's kind of, again, I think in its complexities, it's kind of maybe that was their way of trying to, wrap it all together.
Yeah, give it closure, yeah.
Yeah.
See, I actually thought the third act was like the best part because
Yeah.
they had set up everything. You know who these people are. You know what they're thinking. So they don't really need to be saying it in the third act.
Right.
When they're just sitting there and he's like, "Why'd you come out here?" And he's like, "Oh, I was just in town and whatever." He's like, "You just drove on the highway to get here and stuff." Like, what's going on in both their heads. And when he's like, "Here's my kid, I knocked this girl up," and when he asks, like, "Are you still with her?" and everything, it's just very no one's saying anything, but you know what's going on. It's like when two coworkers got into a fight the day before,
Right.
and you're sitting there, and then one coworker comes in, the other one's already there, and everyone's like, "We know," everyone's aware of what's happening.
Oh, I've been
but
in that
everyone's
situation.
silent.
What did you expect?
One movie that really shocked me that was unconventional, that I wish I saw earlier, but I didn't because I saw the poster, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be about someone overcoming extreme adversity, and she's going to be a strong woman, and this and that, was Jackie.
Yeah.
And it was not that at all.
Yeah.
It's a movie about a crushed woman.
Yeah, and I don't know
who's-
how many Oscar nominations it has. I think it only has 3 or 4.
Yeah, it's nominated for Best Picture, but I thought that movie was a meditation in grief and loss.
Yeah.
And it was one of the better films I've seen in a while about what it's like to deal with someone who just died or deal with a horrible situation in your life and how you really embrace it. And it saw Jackie Kennedy it doesn't do the hidden, I haven't seen Hidden Figures, but I'm going to guess it doesn't do the Hidden Figures thing.
No, it does not.
She's wonderful.
Right.
It's really about, here's a woman who's extremely flawed, very self-conscientious of her own figure, of her own appearance, but still a very strong person and very complicated. And it took a real-life figure and really challenged the audience, where we didn't see her as this glowing, wonderful figure, but this deeply flawed individual.
Are you afraid I'm about to cry again?
No, I say you're more likely to scream.
Scream what?
My husband was a great man.
Who can't overcome her own grief, and especially through the cinematography of the film with those long, stagnant shots. And who's the name? She did. She composed.
Michael Levy. Michael Levy is the composer.
Yes,
of it. Yeah.
she did the score to Under the Skin.
Yeah.
And this one, and it's very nightmarish. And that's what I loved about Jackie. It's a film not everyone's. I saw it with my dad, and he was like, I didn't get the film. It was just too much of the same thing. And I'm like, oh, you're not getting the point,
Right.
It's about being stuck somewhere in life that you can't get out of.
Yeah.
And it was so different because of that.
Well, I agree with your dad because it was one of the first movies I ever walked out of.
Whoa.
Whoa,
Yeah.
here we go.
Breaking news.
I think Jackie is not the worst movie, but I did walk out of it because I saw like Manchester by the Sea like earlier that week.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that's my movie of the year.
Okay.
It was
And
good.
the way they dealt with like loss and stuff and like just all the themes in Manchester were so good. And then I'm like, I can't like go see Moana tomorrow or whatever.
You must find happiness right where you are.
I don't think Natalie Portman did a good job.
Really?
I do not like her as Jackie at all.
Was she
And
too
so-
much like playing it as a caricature? Like, this is my Jackie Kennedy voice.
Yeah.
Very.
Is it?
Like, I
Okay.
was like, oh, here's Natalie Portman doing like a bad Jackie Kennedy impression. Like, I
She bought a lot of furniture for this house. Which made her husband rather cross because he thought she spent too much money.
the score's good. Everything's good. This movie's a good movie, okay?
Yeah.
But I could not sit through more of that movie. It was so bland and boring. And then they were doing very like big, long, drawn out, like sort of pulling out shots and stuff to
Right.
like a really good score. But I'm like, I don't understand why they're doing these shots. What are they emphasizing? This feels like it's Oscar bait.
I think of all the movies in terms of just straight up performance, Isabelle Huppert's pretty close, but
Yeah.
I felt like Portman is this movie. It won't work without anything that she's doing, and I also think at the same time too, sort of what you were talking about with how it's done, I think the director Pablo Larraín does a pretty phenomenal job of trying to take a biopic and make it like a Terrence Malick film, and I know that that's sort of a ongoing trend of directors to
Yeah,
do
they're all doing their Malick.
They're all
they
doing.
just released a trailer to Malick's newest film
Yeah.
today.
But I think what he did was pretty phenomenal. I think it puts you sort of in the room with her, puts you in her grief,
Yeah.
and that's sort of a pretty phenomenal thing to do in this day and age,
Yeah.
especially for biopics. you
Yeah.
know.
There won't be another Camelot. Not another Camelot.
What'd you guys think of Fences?
Didn't see it.
I go out of here every morning. I bust my butt because I like you. You're about the biggest fool I ever saw.
I'm a fan of it. I think the acting is what really rises to the top of that movie. It's very stagey, and I
Yeah.
think those are sort of those complaints. I think it's the type of movie to never see in the theater. I saw it in the
Yeah.
theater, and it's serious.
Yeah.
It's the longest sit. I mean, it's
so fucking long.
It's a long sit, and it's the type of movie that you definitely watch on your couch at home, and you take in really great performances from Denzel Washington and Viola Davis. It's impressive in its acting. It's very well written, and it does a lot of good things.
I thought it was a movie that you should just see at home, and also it's a movie where it's based off of August Wilson's original play that debuted in 1983, and there's so many scenes in there that would have worked better in a play than on screen.
Yeah.
Specifically, the scene where Denzel finds out that his mistress, I guess she died in childbirth or something like that.
Yep.
And it was so much more powerful when you saw the reaction on his face. But then he did this whole monologue where he's putting his face out the window and he's going, "I ain't afraid of you, death!" And it's like, that works great for the stage, because when you're watching a movie, the camera is your main actor.
Yeah.
Where it's pointing, it's telling you what to feel, and it's communicating so much more on a visual level than a play can, because you're right in on the actor's face. You know,
Yeah.
They can whisper, you can get it and all that. And with a play, you're sitting in front of the actor.
Right.
And there's so many scenes that they could have just cut, because every scene was just the same scene on repeat, which is, do I put food in your belly? Do I put a roof over your head? If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have a pot to piss in.
You eat every day.
Yes, sir.
Got a roof over your head.
Yes, sir.
Got clothes on your back.
Yes, sir.
Why you think that is?
Because of you.
Hell, I know it's because of me. But why do you think that is?
Because you like me?
Like you.
And they play that scene from the trailer like 3 fucking times in the movie. And then they play that scene with his other son asking for money, and then he's going to give it back. And they play that 3 fucking times in the movie. And it just keeps going on repeat. The most powerful scene in the film, and the best character, was his brother who came back from the war.
Right.
And he was very much shell-shocked, where
Yeah.
he was partially mentally handicapped because of what he witnessed. When he was just feeding him in the hospital, and they just had that look with each other.
Right.
That was so much more powerful than any of the monologues that were shoved together. The cinematography felt lazy with its symbolism, like, oh, a flower petal falls on the ground. We're going to tilt down to it. Oh, we missed our tilt. Well.
Yeah.
Oh, let's show the sky departing when they play the horn. And you're like, this is better on stage than it is on screen. The themes certainly played to today as they did back then, and it was a movie or a play that took place from the 1950s to the 60s.
Yeah.
And certainly its themes resonate today.
I get up Monday morning, find my lunch on the table, go out, make my way, find my strength to get me through to next Friday. That's all I got, Rose.
It's very much a performance film. You're right. I mean, I think those scenes can get a little bit repetitive. From time to time. It's one of those kind of movies where you can't not give a lot of love to Viola Davis and Denzel because just there's so much material, there's so much weight they have to carry in this movie, and I think that's sort of what shows best and what works best there.
I gave 18 years of my life to stand in the same spot as you.
This has been the CInephrauds. Maybe we'll get some more to talk about in overtime.
All right.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep.